Welcome to Tell the People. Each week, I interview interesting change makers in the world who enjoy sharing their passions that set their soul on fire and serve others. Today, my guest is Lee-Ann Meredith. I'm so glad to be able to share Lee-Ann with you and her program of Wise Mindfulness. With a 20-year career as an educator, Lee-Ann has now developed an engaging and fun program and techniques to help the classroom culture and everyone just calm down through mindfulness. Lee-Ann offers Bringing in the Calm one-day workshops, which are designed to instill mindfulness techniques that are positively life-altering for the classroom culture and for everyone. Lee-Ann uses wise mindfulness to help you and the people you love. And Lee-Ann is an author with recently of her second book, Life Lessons, A Journey Towards Joy. And I am just thrilled and excited to learn about mindfulness. I know mindfulness, but I'm ready to dive deep, and I can't wait for you to tell me more.
Hi, Heather. I'm so excited to be doing this with you. So mindfulness for everyone not just calms us down, it can actually re-energize us. It can actually help us focus, but all those things come from being present, and that's where mindfulness really moves us. So in a classroom, that would be letting your students find ways to bring themselves back center and teaching them the techniques of how to do that. I work with teachers because as one wise teacher I know said, a calm teacher makes a calm classroom. And by doing the calm classroom, or calm classroom is actually a product, so I should endorse them, they're wonderful. But the idea of calming everybody down, of allowing focus, of getting us back moving when everybody's lethargic, those things are all part of mindfulness, and they work for adults. Here's the lovely thing is by using mindfulness, you become more compassionate and less judgmental. You increase your focus, you have better self-esteem, and for kids, it actually raises math scores. Go figure.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
I could have used some calm math because math gives me a lot of anxiety. Yeah. So wonderful. And I love that after 20 plus years as an educator, you were in the classroom for how many years?
I was in a classroom as a regular teacher for 13 years. And then I've done substituting, and I was part of a national or a nationally funded study on whether mindfulness increases test scores through the Erickson Institute. And I got to be a facilitator and go into classrooms in disadvantaged neighborhoods and work with the teachers and the students to help bring it into their lives for kindergarten through second grade. So it was like the best job I ever had. So don't give up, people. I didn't get that job until I was 60.
Oh, no, okay. That gives me
59.
Before we go any further, because I'm furiously writing down notes that I want to be sure to ask you about. Tell me the difference between mindfulness and meditation. I think anyone listening, they may go, is this the same? Does that mean we're going to sit down and do yoga or lay down in a shavasana? Tell the people the difference between and the similarities between mindfulness and meditation.
Okay, so meditation is in a way, as I see it, an extension of what mindfulness is. Meditation is letting go of what is all busy around you and sitting quietly for a set amount of time. It can be just a few minutes if that's, when you first get started. I know people who can meditate for a much longer time than that. I tend to be ants in the pants, as we were mentioning this earlier, ants in the pants. And I have a hard time sitting for that long, but I can sit for about 20 minutes, and that's usually what I do. But it's part of the practice, in my mind, of mindfulness. Mindfulness is actually just letting go of what is in your head, what the Buddhists refer to as the monkey mind, which is all this noise and this chatter that goes on in your head that's always telling you, you can't do it, you're not able to do it, everybody's going to think it's dumb, and you're ugly, because your mind will do that all in that fast, right? Mindfulness is learning to let that go and be aware of what's around you and being in that moment. So learning mindfulness techniques help you bring yourself to center. I like that. In my mind, it's learning to listen to your heart.
Okay.
And letting go of the noise up here and letting your heart dictate what goes on in your mind.
Okay, that makes sense. I wrote a book, which is how we met. We
Right.
met through, we have the mutual publishing coach, Meredith Newland. And I had included in my book about mindfulness and the monkey mind. And for folks who don't know monkey mind, it's imagine going to the jungle or to the primates building primates feature in a zoo. And there's 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 monkeys jumping around going, "Ee-ah!" and they're all screaming and swinging from the trees. And monkey mind is an analogy for all the thoughts that are kicking around in your mind. It's like the primate house at the zoo. It's like being in the jungle with the howler monkeys overhead just screaming, and you can't settle down. You can't find peace in your mind.
Right.
And I love that you said that it's taking you back to grounding and centering. And in my book, I talk about this is the first thing. You've got to let go of the monkey mind before you can begin anything else. And that self-talk. And Meredith, Lee-Ann Meredith, how
Happens all the time.
I know. Yeah. Well, we're just talking about Meredith as well. How I don't want to say ironic, but how pertinent it is that you are working with elementary school children to set the foundation for mindfulness, when that's when a lot of the negative self-talk starts. That's when the monkey mind starts. That's when, as children, we become anxious because life around us and the adults around us are very anxious. And as children, we absorb that. And it carries with us through a lifetime, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And for me, stepping into mindfulness activities, which I would love for you to discuss, for me, it's always going back to what makes my inner child happy. It's what can I do to step away from my adult life just for a few minutes and do something very repetitive and mindful that holds me right in the present, that makes 7-year-old Heather happy. What is that?
Right.
So, yes. So share with us some of the things that you would teach in the workshop for educators or for wise mindfulness.
Well, I usually with teachers, we talk about actually bringing mindfulness into your classroom is an amazing management tool, which in my mind, by teaching the kids how to focus and use strategies that bring their energy center, we actually gain control of the room, and we're actually able to get more stuff done, which is an interesting strategy. It's not really manipulative. Maybe it is. I don't know. It's not really.
It's
It's
guiding, not manipulation. It's guiding the
it's
flow.
guiding. It's guiding. Yeah. It's kind of joking when I say manipulation, because we do a lot of those kind of things as teachers. We let them think that they're leading it, when in fact we're steering them.
Right.
So with the teachers, we talk a lot about what mindfulness is, and then we talk about different techniques that they can use for different points in their day. For example, transitions are really hard for a lot of kids, and your class can go from being heads down, working hard, to just absolute mania. And then you have to bring them all calm again and get them focused. And so there's a lot of techniques that you can use, that I teach teachers that they can use. There's one that kids hold their hands up wide fingered and they trace the outside of their fingers. It's very tactile, and they learn to breathe in as they go up your thumb and breathe out as they go down the thumb, and they take breaths. And I have seen this calm down kindergarten rooms many times as they line up to go to another class, or to move across the room, or to get ready to go to recess,
Right.
whatever that is.
Well, and Lee-Ann, I think it's so, for those who are listening, now more than ever, the techniques that you have created, or that you teach, are pertinent to so much, a wider audience than just the classroom. Because over the last year, 18 months, not only were you a parent doing a job and running the household when you got home, but suddenly during the pandemic, you were the teacher too. Your teacher was on the computer, and you have someone with ants in their pants sitting at the same dining room table where, 2 feet away, you're trying to hold a Zoom meeting about a budget call with your industry, and telling a child to sit down and focus when you are so unfocused, and you're anxious because everything was so heightened. So whoever is listening, if you have lived through that, these are tips for you going forward, because perhaps your children are not back in school full time, or perhaps you've decided to homeschool as an option, or perhaps you have grandchildren and children who are struggling with this transition. These are life lessons that can help you help your family. So more so than just as I sit here thinking about a traditional classroom, that's blown up. And even for college students are, they've been online for a year. So listen up, people, this
Right.
isn't just for K through 12, 30-year-olds with these children.
No, this is from 1 or 2 to 99. These strategies help. And I thoroughly believe that you become more grateful and more joyful by using mindfulness and letting go of a lot of that worry. There's that saying that worry is wasted energy, because you can't change anything and you're living in the future as opposed to being in the present. And I know, it's hard for all of us to let go. It's not like because I do this that I never worry about things. Of course I do. I'm a human. And I also say it's called a mindful practice because you practice it.
Right.
And you practice it over and over and over. I would also say that families, and I work a lot with families also, and talk to parents about ways to get themselves calm so that they can deal with their kids, what strategies they can use to get themselves back in a place where they can deal with issues when their kids are misbehaving. It's hard because you get caught up in the emotion, right?
And misbehaving, but also just struggling with life. I mean,
Right.
What's the saying? If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. We say that.
And but that's true. And mindfulness can help you with that.
Right.
You can't be happy every minute of your life, but
Well, it's not calm. And we are again, I keep bringing it back to, we're a culture now where every day we are holding our breath. And if you watch the news, if you pick up the paper, if you have the notification come across your screen, it's like, oh my gosh, what's happening now? And our children are little sponges. Our loved ones are sponges, and they feel that. And if there's one person in the house who is, I have a girlfriend, Margaret, who gave me this analogy so long ago, and I just love her for it. And she's like, it's like I'm in a low hover. It's like I'm that helicopter flying over, the battlefield, just like I'm waiting to report or see or scope, like you're in a low hover. And if there's even just one person in your house who is always that helicopter in a low hover, just scouting, everybody feels it. And helping that one person, for families to be able to contact you for one-on-one mentoring, and to ground themselves, then the ripple effect is everybody else in the house will feel more calm as well. And if the teacher is stressed, the classroom is stressed.
Right. And really, I mean, my goal is for kids to learn how to do this, but the way that kids learn is from their adults. But it's not just for parents and everyone else. It's and that's a lot about what my book is about. When I started to write my book, which came out like so fast, it just like was one day, there it was, and it was written pretty quickly. I thought it was going to be about exactly that, mindfulness with kids and families and teachers. And it ended up being a book about my grief, the death of my husband, and how the lake that I bought a lake house with friends about a year after my husband died, and how being in nature and learning to use mindfulness helped me get through my grief. So mindfulness is not just a tool for kids to use. It's a tool for all of us to incorporate. And it's an important one for kids to be able to step back, and I do believe that if you can stop the noise, then you can listen to your heart and you make better decisions, whether you're a little kid or an crabby old man, whatever. I just made that up. I don't know. But so I think you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So some of my favorite techniques that I use is I talk about the sky. So this is a great one. I had a person in the office at the school that I worked at she got under my skin. You know how there's just people like that. You don't communicate, there's whatever.
Yes.
And I would find myself on the way going into school, like grumbling about it. And what I would do is I would stop and I would look at the sky, and which is, there, you can see it when you're driving, and start talking to myself out loud. Look at the clouds today. The sky looks like there's only one color, but if you look at it, you can see that it's a variety of different grays, or the sky is so blue there's not a cloud in it, but what color blue is it? And so what you do is you start talking about what's right in front of you, and you talk it out loud if you can. And what that does is it stops all that noise about that lady that was driving me crazy, and it puts me in the present. So looking at the sky is something that it's a tool that I use nearly every day. Another one is to go super small and notice something tiny. And so when you're upset, and I love this one, it's a great one to teach middle schoolers and high schoolers, because they don't want people to know that they're calming themselves down.
Yeah.
And so what you actually do is you can use the back of your hand, you can use your pen, whatever you have right in front of you, and you just hone in for just 30 seconds or a minute on the details. We say we know something like the back of our hands. We really don't know the back of our hands that well. So you can look at it and notice where the veins are and where there are any hairs and the wrinkles in your fingers, and just for a minute. And what that does is it stops the noise and it gets you to calm down.
Okay. That sounds awesome.
So those little techniques like that can bring all of us back to a moment of stillness. And so you can see the similarity there between meditation and mindfulness, where meditation is stretching that out, and mindfulness is like taking the step back into being yourself.
Okay. And my meditation is often, it can be a moving meditation, like walking or running, or, people who are runners are like, that's my church,
Yep.
that's my meditation, the repetitiveness of it. Whereas mindfulness is focusing on an activity or a thought activity for, if I'm right, for a certain amount of time, just like really bringing your focus into blocking out everything else and just focusing, like you said, on the back of your hand or the sky or a tree. Or for me, it's coloring. I get my coloring books out, my adult coloring books and my markers, and I put on music and I color, and it
brings it down.
Yes.
Well, and
I wash dishes.
So you can do other things like you can eat and notice, or you can drink a glass of water and or better yet, something that smells. Think of your coffee or tea, and you can smell it. You notice where it is in your mouth. You notice it as you swallow, and you just pay attention to that for a second, and it calms the mind down. It can be focusing on your breath. There are certain breaths, really simple ones are a triangle breath, where you breathe in for 3 seconds for the count of 3, you hold it for the count of 3, and you exhale. And a lot of people, when they focus on their breath, they focus on the inhale or they focus on the exhale. I love to focus on the stopping points.
Okay.
In between. For some reason, for me, that's what works. But there are also there's different movement ones you can do. I surprise myself at the number of things that you can do. It's more just a matter of learning to bring yourself present. Okay. So this idea of mindful, our minds can be full and just busy. And so it's like when you go and you take a walk in the park and your mind is clickety click and you don't even notice, all of a sudden you're at the end of the path and you didn't even realize how you got there. And we do this all the time. Sometimes we get in the car and our minds are so full and we're going to the grocery store and we find ourselves at work or the other direction because we just got in the car and our mind is so full where they're not even paying attention to where we're going. But mindful is when you actually notice you're on that path in the park and you notice the grass and you notice the flowers. So it's bringing yourself back into the moment.
Okay. And for some people it's gardening. It's
there's all sorts of.
For me, it's washing the dishes. You give me, if I can clean the house, I can calm myself down. Like if I can restore order to something, for me, it's orderliness and picking one activity and completing it. Like
I should invite you over.
I mean, I'm telling you, it's not, I can't cook.
I wish you lived closer.
I can't cook a damn, but boy, I can clean. But I can block out everything else and just focus on that. I'll pick one space and just focus on that. And sometimes it's putting order, like my jewelry box, like when I end up throwing all my jewelry in and it's all and it's like, okay, let me just focus on this. Let me put on some good music and focus on just this. And not it makes me feel accomplished, but it also brings order back. And then I can deal with whatever else is happening. Tell me about mentoring families. You do, again, Lee-Ann offers workshops, one-on-one mentoring for family and kids. But tell me how would you give me an example for how you, I don't want to say take on, but how would you address a family issue or something that has worked? Can you give me an example of a family that you have helped?
Well, I'm not a psychotherapist and I can't do all that stuff. I can help you with what's happening now and solving a small problem. So, let's say that you have a toddler that's 3-year-olds, right? There's something.
And let's note here that mindfulness is a fantastic complement to talk therapy. Like it, we're not suggesting either or, but it is a great complement to psychotherapy, to talk therapy. Yes.
Right. And so, usually when I'm working with a family, I figure out what's the issue, whether it's how to get them to sit down and actually get their homework done. And I did this a lot when I was a teacher. I worked with a lot of families on that. And then, but if it's a family that has a younger child, we find ways to help them productively get their child to settle down, to learn to articulate, like finding ways to learn to identify emotions and be able to name their emotions, and then teaching them ways to get through it. And an important thing to remember is that we all have emotions. There is no such thing as a bad emotion. It's how we deal with our emotions. So,
but on that note, many of us have been told, or we have been conditioned to think that some emotions are bad and that we shouldn't use them. That it's, oh, anger has no purpose here, or grief has no purpose here, or and I just over the past few years, I've realized that some of my superpowers, again, other than cleaning the house, are emotions and working through emotions. And as a Cancer, I'm a water sign with a Pisces moon, so I'm all the emotion. And I found myself recently, the past couple of years, when someone said, "You're so emotional," and I said, "Thank you. I have all the emotion. As a human, God has gifted me this cornucopia of emotions, and I may use all of them before noon. Thank you very much." Because I know I am a master at using them at just the right time. Because there are times to be angry and not stuff. And there are times to be envious and understand why you're envious, why that emotion comes up, and refocus it on how that feels, or to be sad or to be anxious. But to help and be mindful with, why am I feeling it, not don't feel that, right?
right. And there's a Zen philosophy that if you if you don't open the door and welcome the emotion in to your house, you being the house, and controlling what that emotion is, that doesn't, or emotion, controlling where you're going to let them. You're going to let them come in, sit down, have a cup of coffee, be mad if it's anger, be sad if it's sorrow, and then thank them and let them go. Because if you don't let them in, it will find a way in, and it is not usually pretty when it does. So by saying anger is bad only allows us to be only allows us to show that you're bad. You know, we feel emotions, we aren't emotions. But we internalize that you're angry as that's bad and I'm bad because I'm angry. And instead of us holding on to that as saying I am, you can say I feel, and that breaks some of that cycle, because that is words, and words do matter.
Well,
But
and
also this idea that it's going to sneak in. We all get mad. We all are heartbroken sometimes. It happens to every one of us. And by not accepting it and saying, okay, that's how I feel right now, let it go. And believe me, with grief, and when my husband died, grief is not linear. It's not like something that starts out this big and gets down to a little tiny trickle. It comes back. My husband's been dead for 18 years, and there are still days that it just takes my breath away. And that doesn't mean that I'm not
healing.
yeah,
Healing
right,
is healing is not linear. It's cyclical.
right.
It's amorphous. And a perfect transition. I was hoping that I was going to ask for tips on as we transition from anger and also the anger, allowing yourself to feel angry or feel these emotions that we even as children are told, don't stop being angry. Stop doing that.
Or I'll give you something to cry about.
Right. Yeah, I'll give you something to cry about. That takes away our control. And again, the word manipulation and control, but it takes away our personal power, that we aren't allowed to feel that. We're being told, you don't get to, I am telling you, you don't get to feel that way. And I'm so happy that you transitioned to the grief topic, because grief with the loss of a loved one or a loved pet, grief is also the loss of a career. It's also the loss of a job. It's the loss of a title. It's the loss of a relationship. It's the loss of, during a divorce, the future that you thought you would have, the lifestyle that you thought that you would have shows up in grief in so many ways. And it sneaks up on you in different days. And so if you could, please talk about with Lake Lessons and your book, Lake Lessons, and how you use mindfulness for grief. We're also positioned now at this point in history that we're losing a lot of loved ones to the virus, and we're losing a lot of who we thought we were. Jobs and careers that you thought you might always have. Industries are shutting down. We have to let go of businesses that we thought, because of lack of business, there are a lot of things that we collectively are letting go of, and we are grieving while we're moving through it. And to know that it's going to pop up again. You're going to get through it today. But just like as I'm looking here, if you're looking at me on YouTube, I'm pointing to the right. I purged a lot of my closet last night and items popped up, and I'm like, ooh, I got to grieve that one again. Am I ready to let go of that? So please talk to us about mindfulness and grieving.
Wow, I feel like that's such a huge topic that in some ways it's almost overwhelming. And I was thinking of the other things that you grieve is like your kids going away to college or moving out or moving to a different state, which both of my kids have done. I was going to say to me, they didn't do it to me. They did it for themselves.
And the children last year, I have several friends who their children are a bit younger than mine. And so they went through their senior year.
Yes.
The children went through their senior year quarantined at home or online school. And the moms and the dads were so sad and were grieving the expected senior year that these kids didn't have.
Right.
All the things that I'm sure you remember, I remember, which, all the pomp and circumstance, all the fun, all the, signing the yearbooks and getting your class rings and going to the prom, and they didn't have these things. And it was, everyone grieved the perception of something that the anticipation of something we didn't get.
Right.
And so I know it's a big, so tell.
And no, and that's a big thing. That is a big thing about grief. And so 3 days ago would have been my 38th wedding anniversary. And it's a funny thing. It's like that was a long time ago. That was a really long time ago. And
Same time it was yesterday. And
yeah,
you know, as we have more years under our belt, it was just yesterday. And,
right.
and there are memories I know that you can smell them, touch them, taste them. You remember a conversation over scrambling eggs one Saturday morning, and it was yesterday. And that's the painful part, is
Right.
everything. It was right. It's right here.
So the book is really it starts where friends of ours who had really gone through my husband's illness with me. He had been ill with cancer for 3 years, and they were good friends before that. And our kids were the same age, and we always joked that we co-parented. And one day I got this phone call out of the blue from the husband of that couple, and he said, "How do you feel about cottages?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And we bought this cottage together, and it's been lovely, but it's on this lake that has never had a gas motor on it.
Wow.
And so the guy who subdivided the property in the 50s had this vision that he wanted to keep it as natural as possible. And they made that rule early on. It's about 2/3 developed, and the remaining third will never be developed because they put in a rule that it required a unanimous agreement of the Lake Association to do any more development. And that's never going to happen, because we can't even agree on, little things like testing the water for mercury. So
you have your own walls and ponds. Yes.
yeah, it's a unique and lovely place. But what it did is my life was chaos. I had two kids in their late teens. My son was really struggling. He really felt the loss of his dad a lot. And it gave us this stopping point, this breath where we could go. And it was this new and beautiful place that didn't include my husband, but gave us a chance to reflect on it. And what happened in that place, and it's something you can do anywhere you live, is I learned to really pay attention to what was happening around me and going smaller. Whether it was watching the chipmunks, because I will forever wonder about chipmunks. I mean, what are they about?
Awesome.
Or the birds. Pardon? Yeah. Or watching the birds. A lot of times when I'm there and I'm in my head, all of a sudden I'll see a bird shoot by a window, and I'll think, oh, that's right, I'm at a lake. Let's stop what you're doing and shift your mindset. So I think of them as my angels sometimes. Learning to step back and put that noise and get out of my head. And clearly we still all have bad days. We still have days. I spent a lot of time there. Initially, I cried a lot. You were talking about your water signs. I am a Virgo with a Leo moon and a Libra rising sign. So I am like not water. I don't cry. And pardon?
You're a volcano.
I'm a volcano. Yeah. And it's just not, it's just not me. And I couldn't cry at home in front of my kids, especially my son, because he wanted to help me, but he was so hurt himself, he just couldn't do it. Whereas my daughter, who is the cancer, was like, get it out, mom, you know. So anyway, it gave me a respite of being away, but I learned eventually to keep just noticing the small, noticing the grand, and letting go of all that other stuff. That doesn't mean, as I said earlier, that doesn't mean that I still don't have moments where it's like, it's so present that I can't get away from it. But I know that it's an emotion, and emotions don't stay if you don't let them. Let me rephrase that. Emotions don't stay if you acknowledge them and you honor them, and then you can step through them. Emotions will stay if you don't acknowledge them, because you can't get rid of them.
Right.
You know, they're like, we were talking about leeches yesterday with one of my friends from the lake, and we don't get them very often, but she was talking about one of the kids got a leech, and it's emotions are like a leech. If you catch it as soon as it's there, you can say, okay, bye-bye. But if you let it sit there for a minute, it's going to take a lot more work to get rid of it.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
I've had a leech from a lake. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't, I think maybe in all the years, I've only had 2, but it does happen. So the book is actually, it really was, it's my journey. I call it a journey towards joy. And it shows how I talk about how I went from those really dark days to gradually learning who I was. And I divided it up by the Buddhist idea. I'm not a Buddhist, but I love a lot of their ideas. The Buddhist idea of starting with darkness and moving towards light, and the different steps in between, and learning to let go, and learning that joy is letting the light into your darkest areas.
Okay.
And you know, that yin yang symbol and how it's divided, and there's the dark with the light. So it's that recognition of the most horrible things can have this moment of joy, or lead you towards something of joy. And even beautiful moments have this dark dot in the middle of them. So the lake, on a beautiful day, the lake happened, and I was financially able to do it because my husband had died and I had life insurance. So this white light, this white side of the yin yang sign, that dark dot was his death, but
Wow.
it brought all this joy.
Right. Without the dark, there's not the light.
Right.
You can't honor one without the other.
Yeah.
Wow. We've covered so much. I mean, I could talk for another hour. We have so much. Thank you for sharing that. I am thinking right now, there are 2 or 3 people that are going to be getting the gift of lake lessons from me today. And tell me again, where can we order your book?
You can order my book on Amazon. If you look up lake lessons,
Okay.
it will show up, and it has a picture of the lake from my deck on it.
Oh, that's
Who
your
knew? Yeah, that's my lake. That's my photograph from my iPhone. Who knew you could do this? But it's the picture. It's available on Amazon, and it was a labor of love
okay.
to write it.
Yeah.
So
Very cathartic. Yes.
yes, and then I think you'll put my contact information.
Yes, I will be absolutely putting your contact information at the description for the podcast and for YouTube. So if you're listening on podcast and you want to watch this interview, it's on YouTube. I like to record both ways. but I'm so grateful for you following down this breadcrumb trail with me from, again, this is the highlight of my day when I can talk about and think about so many different things, from how to bring mindfulness to yourself as an adult, how to help your loved ones, especially our little loved ones as the children in our lives, and children being 1 to 30 years old to 40 to 50. I'm still my parents' child.
My mother-in-law always said the first 30 years are the hardest.
I would agree. I've almost got the first one over the finish line. Yes. But, and the irony this weekend that my parents came to visit and we were looking at pictures from, my daughter is 27 and is a new mother, young mother, and she has a 5-month-old. And then I'm sitting there with my parents, and I'm 25 years younger than my father and 25 years older than my daughter. And we're looking at the pictures of, oh my gosh, that, like I said, that was just yesterday.
Mhm.
That was
Yeah,
we're living some parallel lives.
right.
And that all of us can step into mindfulness and support each other. And that you are available for educators for a workshop. So folks can contact you and you can bring mindfulness and bringing the calm workshop, 1-day workshop. And will you do that by Zoom?
Yes, I can do it by Zoom. I can do it in person also, but in the world that we're in right now, I know that a lot of workshops are being done on Zoom, and I do know how to do that.
Okay.
Yay! I never even heard of it 2 years ago.
Right? It came along just, yes. We're in that Gemini, Sagittarius, North Node, South Node, where the world, all the technology just blasts off. So you do those workshops, that you offer mentoring for individuals, but also for families. And that would be in person or online if you're, locally, but also online. And your amazing books, 2 books, but your amazing books are available. What was the name of your first book? Please share that.
It's called Angels in My Classroom: How Second Graders Saved My Life.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. Give me a synopsis of that one.
Again, I didn't know I was writing 2 books about grief. It is about how my first year teaching, my husband was diagnosed with cancer and then died my 3rd year, and how going into the classroom and my passion for teaching got me through it. And it's a lot about education.
Wow.
And best practices philosophy of education. So
Well, I think that one is really could be very crucial for a lot of teachers right now. I know that with the last year and 18 months, educators have just taken a gut punch and are tired. And there's a lot of the educators I know are struggling with, why in the heck am I doing this? Because this wasn't what I signed up for. How can I? Yeah.
and educators, we forget that educators have a personal life, and they
Yes.
have a lot of things going on in their own world, especially now, but even before. And then they still have their passion to teach, and it's hard. It's really hard for the teachers right now.
And I'm so glad that we don't expect, if we email and text our doctors and healthcare providers, that they will respond to us in 10 minutes or by email within 2 hours. But boy, those teachers are expected to. And so whoever's listening, give some grace to those educators. You didn't choose to be in the classroom for a reason. So
Hard job. It's a hard
yes,
job.
it's a hard job. Well, Lee-Ann, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. I'm definitely going to have you back on, because I would love just to dive into your first book, how Angels in the Classroom. I think that's a show all its own. But thank you. And
No, thank you for having me.
yes, and thank you for tuning in to Tell the People. Share this with people that you love, and look in the description for how to contact Lee-Ann at leeannmeredith.com. And also find Lee-Ann on Instagram at meredith.leeann, which will also link you to all the other ways to buy the books and contact her for workshops. But Lee-Ann, thank you so much. You are such a blessing to so many, and I really appreciate your time.
You too, Heather. Back at you.
Thanks.